Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So, seeing how the flank is like one of the most popular planes in the game right now, and it is also, let's face it, kind of a struggle bus. I decided to take it out yesterday and just see if I could, I don't know, just see like what kind of score I could get with it. See if I could like get some, kills, maybe avoid some situations or whatever like that, and just stay alive as much as possible, if that makes sense. I was flying out in a squad, not like a full squad, but like I had one or two wingmen basically at all times, which is also very helpful as well. But you can definitely solo this thing. You just need to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more wary about what situations you sort of fly into. So first thing you need to realize is that this plane, you can't take on the entire world. You need to identify certain situations and know when to back out. So you see in the footage right there, I was locking someone up, I lost a lock, and then by the time I would have reacquired the lock, I already had a missile coming my way from another target coming from that direction. Now, I checked my speed, I was at Mach 1.3, 1.4ish, and I decided, okay, screw it. If I keep locking this guy, the other guy's going to get me. So I decided to turn around and just fly away and kind of, try and reset the fight a little bit. We're on Afghanistan. Afghanistan is one of the best maps of Sim right now, at least for top tier, because it has a lot of terrain. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to break like radar contact, not radar contact, that's the wrong word. Radar lock. I want to disappear from their radar screens basically, just so they sort of focus on other targets for a little bit. They're not paying too much attention to me, because generally when you lose a target for like 5 seconds, most players in this game just forget that you exist for some reason. So that's also a thing. I managed to turn the thing around. I decided, okay, now's the time to go back. I was getting some pings from the RWR, but now I'm basically just pointing my nose in the direction that I thought they were last at, and lo and behold, I do find one. I managed to lock them up on radar, get that ER pulled up straight away, raise the nose a little bit just to give it a little bit more clearance in case he wants to duck behind a mountain or something like that. Fire it off, get into the crank just to increase the travel time of his missile that he's firing at me, because obviously you can do the launch notification. I do like some spiraling. I do get the kill. I start pre-flaring a little bit because it's always a good idea nowadays to do that. And yeah, it's pretty simple kill. And if you both fire off your missiles at the same time, if you're against like something that's firing a Sparrow or something like that, you are generally quite safe with your ER. You just got to be careful if they're multi-pathing. But that's again why Afghanistan's such a good map, because it's quite hard to do with the terrain. If I sound a little bit croaky this video, I promise it's not me trying to be cringe or anything. It's just I am ill, like genuinely ill right now, and there's just nothing I can do about it. So yeah, you have to deal with it. I guess I could just like write a script off or whatever and just have like one of those AI robot voices narrate the video, but Stephen Hawker doesn't seem to be the most popular dude right now, so we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, in the next clip here, I'm locking up a something, because obviously we can't tell what it is because the Russian RWR is absolute bullshit in this game. End up firing a missile, and I guess we'll just need to hope it's not an F-14 firing a Phoenix missile at us. End up staying quite high, just because like the higher you are, you can generally kind of entice the other person to point their nose up at you. It's a neat little psychological trick I like to use. I end up firing a second missile here. The bore sight on the RS-27s is genuinely just amazing, and as you can see, the first missile misses as he's multipathing. Once he sees the impact, he pulls his nose up thinking he's safe, but the second missile is going to end up getting him. Live and learn, people. So this next clip here is a little bit later in the game. You can see by the score on the top of your screen. What I'm doing right here is I'm actually running away from the action, because that is one thing you should always be doing with the flanker, of course, is running away from where the action is, because that's also how you stay alive. But it's also a good way to not get any kills and not have any fun, so I finally decided it's time to come up from under the bed sheets, and I muster up the courage to turn the nose around. I point my radar at the scene of the accident. I don't see anything, and at this point I'm just kind of scanning, really praying a little like Gripen or whatever doesn't just show up for some reason right in front of my nose. My Russian radar hasn't picked them up for some reason, because that is something that also happens quite frequently. But then I get locked up from RWR on my 1 o'clock. I do see the dot out in front, so I go into ACM mode. I'm a little bit too high here, but I fire off an R27, and the R27 does obviously with speed take care of the problem. Now the dude did end up multipathing that. Fire a second, obviously he's going to dodge that just close to the ground. Look at the arc on that R73, by the way. That's pretty easy. Like, I think I still stand by what I said, but like, the AIM-9M is the best missile in Sim, but my god, the R73 is good. Anyway, I fly back a little bit, just get a little bit of distance, try to reset the fight a little bit. Come back just to point the radar back at it again. I get launched on again, use the helmet mounted fight to fire off the R73, almost get hit by that radar missile there, but obviously I'm multipathing, so the missile just goes into the ground, because that is how easy it is to dodge radar missiles in War Thunder, despite what some American mains seem to believe about the R27. Fire off that R73 in a somewhat rear aspect shot. That's why I fired it off a little bit like earlier, a little bit before I pointed the nose at him, just because it was the perfect aspect. He ended up flaring a whole bunch, but because it's rear aspect, it obviously ignores the flares. And as you can see here, I was also quite slow at the top of that loop. I ended up pre-flaring a little bit, and there was a guy coming for me, but the teammate actually shot him down before he could get a missile off. So I was very lucky there, but it goes to show in a lot of situations, if you dogfight anything, you are always vulnerable. Anyway, that game did kind of die out in the end. I think we ended up fighting like 4 people for the next like half an hour, and eventually we just said, alright, screw it, we're looking for a new lobby. Coincidentally, it is the same map with exactly the same weather as well, so that's why I mentioned it, just so you don't get confused. You can also see it in the score at the top of your screen. Anyway, my friend called out for cover over here. I decided to oblige because I am a friendly flanker, a very team-orientated flanker, and I'm definitely not just going over here to get a free kill. He ends up killing him anyway, so yeah, he was in good position, and he did tell me that, so I did do the right thing and hold fire, so that, you know, his hard work will obviously get rewarded. End up flaring a little bit because we do have some more F-16s coming in. Obviously, how I know they're F-16s because my friendlies have identified them as F-16s and told me over Discord, because it's not like the Russian RWR tells you or anything like that. I decided to fire off the R27ET at this guy. You see, I do try to lead the missile a little bit because I thought, hey, maybe the flare resistance is just a little bit better, but as you can see, nope. And I decided to opt for the R27ER, which is the radar-guided version, after I get a solid ACM lock. And it just goes off for him despite all the flares he's popping off. So if he didn't have chaff, which he didn't in that situation, there wasn't really a lot he could have done there. Now, at this point, we were kind of thinking about, like, okay, do you know what? It might be time to go back because we're quite close to their spawn, and obviously if you kill people right in front of their spawn, they're just going to keep coming back. But my friend who's in the MiG-29, sorry, the MiG-29 SMT specifically, so it gets the good RWR, was telling us that F-16s are afoot and they're quite close. So I turned them around. I see some 2 planes over here. Turns out they're actually both friendly. And then I see something to the left of that, and it ends up being the F-16. And then he does like this weird little, I mean, I like him up, but he sort of like tumbles a little bit weirdly, and then he just explodes, and it turns out Griffin killed him, so, you know, I'll take it. Anyway, I start pre-flaring immediately because my friend instantly tells me that, hey, someone has an F-16 on him. Me, obviously being the paranoid guy that I am, end up, I start pre-flaring just because it's always a good idea whenever an F-16 ends the fight. Turns out he's actually on me at this point. I am regretting staying around, and I really wish I would have just gone back to base. But then I also have teammates. So at this point, I'm just kind of like trying to spiral climb a little bit. The F-16 is better at this than the flanker. So if you're like doing solo, you would have, you know, maybe would have tried to reverse him or something like that. Done some verticals, trying to get him slow somehow. But as you can see, if you have teammates, you can bait them, and just like an RB, the bait always works. I continue just pre-flaring because the you know, it's just what you do when you're slow. If you don't, you're just asking to get missiled by something. I do see something off in the distance here. There were also 2 F-16 signals on the RWR earlier, so we knew there was still someone like lurking about. And lo and behold, we do find him, and I fire off the ET, the R27ET, so that's the infrared guided version of it. It did have the range, but I think he did end up flaring it off. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see my little mini player here on the editing software. He goes behind the mountain. I decided to switch over to the ACM mode, the vertical scan mode, so I can, you know, maybe get like a lucky ER shot off. But he emerges from the mountain right in my face, so the R27's not going to work. I switch over to the R73s, take him into the vertical. Now, I got really super lucky in that head-on. I should have just been more aggressive and actually just pulled him into the HUD and just started hosing him down or whatever. Really lucky there to avoid those shots. I do identify at this point as an F-16D, which is the fat F-16, which is the one I made my last video on, by the way, if you want to go ahead and watch that. He comes back around here for another head-on. I fought with the R73, and it just decides to ignore all of the flares, which is very fortunate for me. And I actually ended up killing him there. Little head-ons like that, I would suggest you take them in the flanker. I know it's like kind of like a 50-50 shot, you know who's gonna die, but if you don't and you end up rate fighting people or whatever like that, the odds are a lot less for you. So 50-50, you should probably take it in this thing. I also just want to like touch on the R27ET real quick. Now, so that is the infrared guided version of the R27ER, which is the radar guided version, and don't get me wrong, it is a fantastic missile, like performance-wise. It has incredible range and everything like that, but I don't really see a use for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does have uses. I mean, if you go to emerge and the guy doesn't turn with you and he just blasts on by at like Mach 1.1 on the deck or whatever like that, you get the nose round, you fire off that ET, and the ET is going to catch him. If it's rear aspect, it's probably going to connect. It's going to be very difficult missiles to flare off. However, though, the thing about these missiles is that they have incredibly long range, right? So you want to use them at range, of course. The problem is, though, flares become very, very effective at range. So if the person sees you coming, they're just going to flare off the missile, and if the person doesn't see you coming, what's to stop you just flying over there and firing off an R-73 in their face, And the R-73, like, it does have a bit of range to it as well, but you get the benefit of being able to use it in a close-end dogfight, and it's also a lot lighter on the plane as well, so it doesn't weigh you down as much. So that's just kind of like, I'm not saying it's a bad missile, and all I'm saying is I haven't really, for myself, found a reliable, consistent use for them. So in general, I was trying them out a little bit in this video, but in general I do stick to having either 4 or 6 R-73s and either 4 or 6 R-27 ERs on board, depending on the type of game that I want to play. Now, I've just got to the end of recording this commentary and then I realised I forgot to press the record button, so I get to do it all again. This is just fantastic. Anyway, we have an F-16 firing at us. Obviously, I didn't know it was an F-16 at the time, because, do I have to say it again? We dodged the first barrel here. You can hear it go past us right now, just because we're flying close to the ground. It's easy as you can, and it's one of the easiest things to do in this game is dodge radar missiles. As you can see, the second one's coming in here. This is just nowhere near me. I don't know why people find it so difficult to dodge these things. I used the helmet mounted sight to fire off that R-73 without pointing the nose at him, which is very helpful when you're multipathing. He ends up flaring it off. I take the plane into the vertical straight away. We do have a little bit of speed on, we've got to be careful not to black out. But obviously it's a flanker, so it loses all of its speed in one turn anyway. He does end up flaring a little bit here, so I decide not to fire an R-73, because obviously it's just going to go from flares. He actually goes into the vertical here. I will follow him up into the vertical, because every little split S that we do, we both lose a little bit more speed, and as my slow speed maneuverability is a lot better than his, I decide to take it up for another split S, and he makes the mistake of following me, and as you're going to see here, I get him locked up. I try to lock him up here with the radar, and it's just not really working that well. He does flare off that R-73, fair play to him, but he just parks the boss in front of me, and it's a pretty easy shot there. Now, Afghanistan is definitely one of the better maps for flankers, and it's not just because of the terrain, obviously, but it's also due to the fact that the map just takes place at a higher altitude, and these, like, sort of, low-speed fighters, what I'm going to call them, generally just tend to do better up at altitude than most American planes, I'm going to be honest. The next clip here isn't anything special. It's basically just like me third-partying someone else, like dogfighting a Gripen, but obviously it's a Gripen kill, so I have to leave it in the video. And I end up incinerating him, as you can see, just like a bunch of certain people would have liked to have had a certain flight log incident. The last clip I collected yesterday is basically me violating the last player on the enemy team. He was an F-16C, and I ended up finding him because he took out our surveillance aircraft. As you can see, we have like basically 500 tickets left or something like that, but we were determined to win the match and we needed to make this guy leave, so I lock him up on radar. He is kind of on the multi-pathing area on the map, which is what I'm going to refer to it as, either that or the plateau. I fire off all of my ERs. As you can see, 3 missiles are already on the way. Sorry, 2 missiles are already on the way. The third one I fire off now, and then I think I give him a 4th one just for good measure. And as you can see, I have all angles covered, and for some unknown reason, he decides to point his nose up at me and try to fire off an A9M or something. I don't know. I honestly have no clue what he was doing. But anyway, that's the video. We end up winning the match. As you can see, the enemy team just left the match, obviously, and we ended up winning. So the final score was 12 kills to 4 deaths. I also got 2 assists there because Flax is a little dirty kill stealer, and he deserves everything he's going to get. Anyway, that's all I have for the video. I'm still currently trying to grind out the Mirage. I have the Mirage 2000-5 that I need to do first. I just need to spade it, and then once I have that spaded, I'll make a video on that, and then hopefully by that time I'll have the Mirage 4000 unlocked, and then I'll make a video on that. But it just takes time. Like I said in the last video, I just don't have that much time to make these videos anymore. So, but yeah, I'm determined, and I will keep at it, and I'll bring you a Mirage video very soon. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys, as always, and yeah, cheers.